Um,
All right,
well,
we're live on
you
my
got my
end.
email. We have a plan here. Um, for Mark A, you're going to go first
Yep.
after I do the introductions. Then I'll follow up, and then Matt, you will come in. Does that sound good?
Yep, sounds good to me.
Okay, excellent. Matt, are you going to be able to share video with us?
Yes, I will.
Okay, good. And
It's just whatever
Hold on.
video you guys share, I can't see it.
right.
Nor
Okay,
can anyone like see what you guys look like. It's just
right.
white on my
Okay,
screen because you don't
okay.
have
I'm
streaming.
The host has disabled participant screen sharing, so you'll have to enable that for my
Yeah,
end.
yes, I
yeah,
just
that's
co-hosted
that's
you.
what that's what we were
Um,
trying to figure out.
right. Mark, can you get a little more light on your face?
I can try. Let me see. I'd like to record this. Zoom would like to. Um, I'm just in a not the best spot for
Uh-huh.
this today, but is that a little better?
Yeah,
A
that's a
little
little better. That'll work.
better.
Be fine. Okay, let's see. Both of you are co-hosted.
Mhm.
Uh,
I'm
drink a
having
little.
a one. Can I just test screen? Oh, hold on. Allows him to share screen. I guess I didn't enable screen sharing with Zoom. 1 second. I don't know why it's not allowing me to
Yeah,
share.
yeah. Go ahead and do a test for screen sharing. I did download your PowerPoint if we have to run it off my computer.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, it's kind of strange. Share.
Let's see. I can.
It's kind of weird that it doesn't just show. Normally, it just shows your background, but then it's basic.
Your video is off. Um,
My video is off.
I see.
Open system preferences, and then nothing happens.
Huh. Why you have a on the participants, your video camera has a red bar through it.
Hmm. That's weird. Should I leave and come back or something? I don't know what the.
No,
'Cause
we
I can.
I can run it from here. Just tell me when you want your PowerPoint showing.
Okay. All right. But
Yeah.
you'll have to do slides, right?
Pardon?
You'll have to click the slides
I'll
though,
click
right?
the slides. Yeah, I can do that. Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
All
let's
right,
yeah.
let's get started.
All right.
Okay. Hit record. Hold on.
Yeah.
Record. Where is it?
I'm in. Uh, there.
Video. Where's my record button?
Hmm.
There. Well,
Here we go. Record through the cloud. Here we go.
well.
Recording in
Okay.
progress.
So my
Welcome,
stream.
everyone. Here we are. Okay, I'll start that again.
Yeah.
Welcome, everyone. Here we are for episode 2 of the Mark and Mark Paleo Pod, Paleo video. Today's topic is giant fungi in paleontology and in paleo art. So, a very interesting show today, and we're going to start off with Mark Agostini. Okay, go ahead, Mark.
All right, everybody. Well, welcome to the Paleo Podcast, and we're gonna begin by talking about a really fascinating fungi that was found. Let's go with the PowerPoint, Mark.
Coming up.
Oh, I also have it up as well.
Here we go.
And it's called Prototaxites. And for many that know about, say, dinosaur paleontology, obviously Earth's history is vast. It goes back 4.6 billion years, and then the earliest life is about the age of the Earth, pushing 4 billion years. But one thing that we really don't get without the advent of fungi are vascular plants, right? What for people that maybe aren't familiar with what fungus does is it breaks down detritus in the forests. It kind of turns that detritus back into its basic nutrients, and then that enriches the soil. And from an evolutionary point of view, soil was actually pretty much devoid of those nutrients until we get the advent of fungus. And fungus is a very, for people that maybe watched Last of Us, it's a very fascinating entire family of animals that's separate from our a kingdom of that's separate from animals, right? Uh, let's go next slide then.
Mhm.
And so looking at the within the the broader time scale, we're up in the which is really the Anthropocene is what we call it, which is a time period that basically means that humans have now been able to influence geological processes. But before that, we were in what's called the Holocene of the Cenozoic era. But going back to the beginning of these mushrooms, it's in that transition between the Silurian and the Devonian period of the Paleozoic. So we're talking about an extreme amount of time, right around 420, 430 million years. Next slide here. And like I said, you don't get vascular plants without fungi, and it really makes sense within the time scale of when you see vascular plants. There had to have been some kind of evolution of fungi, and vascular plants are the early ones are ferns. And for some of our listeners, they may be familiar with calamites. Calamites are basically the ancestors of cattails. Cattails are those kind of enigmatic plants that we see sometimes in swamps, but these were entire trees that were kind of looked like cattails. They had like a bamboo-like structure. Next slide, Mark. And this is what Prototaxites looks like. For anyone who's not able to see it, it kind of looks just like a giant long rock of sorts. And that's the type of fossilization that you get. Prototaxites is found in the 1840s up in Quebec in Canada. And the human story of this is what really fascinates me is the interpretation of it, right? So next slide, Mark.
Just before we do,
Oh,
I want to point out the one on the right in your image there.
hmm,
Notice the sort of lumpiness on it.
hmm.
That's going to show up in my paleo art later on.
Oh, cool.
Also notice the lack of a cap. There's no
Yes.
caps on these.
Yes, no caps on these. Okay, continuing here.
Continuing. And so, of course, science is subject to change, it's subject to interpretation, and we really don't arrive at Prototaxites as a fungus or even in the family of fungus till quite later on. John William Dawson is the first one to study Prototaxites as a fossil some years after its discovery. It's kind of like the Thule monster, for many years, for people that don't know, it's this kind of enigmatic, weird animal with eye bars, and it's now interpreted to be an ancestor of the lamprey fish, but there was a host of interpretations of what this strange animal was. Well,
Yes,
prototype.
that's such a fascinating creature, the Tully monster, now known as genus Tully monstrum. Yeah,
Yes.
and the jury's still out on what it is, but the vertebrate or the chordate interpretation is really intriguing.
Yep.
Uh,
And
w-
Telemonstrum gregarium for its gregarious nature. We scientists love these kind of things that defy our expectations, and this is one of those things that constantly changes. So John William Dawson, he's a scientist, he's a botanist, and he interprets Protaxites as a conifer-like animal, and it kind of rests there in the late 1800s. Next slide, please. And he's looking at the basically the structure of the fossil, and he thinks that it's a conifer that has sort of a symbiotic relationship with some kind of fungus that grows on the outside, the outer bark. Next slide. But then that is later challenged by a botanist, William Carruthers, who says that I don't think it's a plant. I think it's some kind of a algae or some kind of algal kind of mat type structure, right? And then that's sort of where it rests for a time. Next slide. And then a botanist, I don't know his first name, but A.H. Church, in 1919, he makes just some cursory comments, elementary notes on the morphology of fungi, and notes that, well, ruling out fungus for Prototaxites is not, the jury's out still. He doesn't make a conclusive statement. But where it really changes, next slide, um, and could you go one slide ahead, Mark? I'm blanking on this guy's name. Okay, Francis Huber. Go back real quick. But anyway, Francis Huber is a scientist who's working at the Smithsonian Museum of Natural History, and he approaches Protaxites from kind of a blank slate, and he evaluates it, and he uh, uh, notes the microstructure of the fossil, and ultimately makes a convincing argument that it is fungus, that it is a mushroom. And this paper called Rotted Wood Alga Fungus: The History and Life of Prototaxites, Dawson, 1859. It's sort of this landmark paper where he makes his argument, and then later on, Huber, again of the Smithsonian and colleagues, they do isotope analysis of Prototaxites, and fascinating enough, they find that Prototaxites, the carbon, the variable carbons present in Prototaxites are not conducive to a plant. You know, a plant will have typically one type of carbon isotope inside, but a mushroom, because it's parasitizing and eating other things, will have many different carbon isotopes, and that's exactly what the fossils of Prototaxites still hold within them, are these isotopes indicative of its nature as a carnivorous mushroom, because mushrooms eat other things, right? Next slide, Mark. And this is just the abstract for those who can't see it, but basically the main thing is he's able to classify it in the kingdom fungi. He redescribes the genus as structurally composed of these interactive hyphae, which are large, thin-walled, septate, branching, generative hyphae, which are the kind of the ways that the mushroom grows and spreads. Next slide. And here's an image of Prototaxites. And I think some of us that didn't know, say, about giant mushrooms, and just to give people a sense of scale of this mushroom, there's a full-grown man at one end. He's seated in the desert of Saudi Arabia, and he's kind of presiding over this long black object that at one end actually kind of has almost like a cap to it. And this is interpreted as a Prototaxites fossil, and it was found in, I think, the early 2000s. But this thing has to be at least 12 feet long, maybe three feet wide. And to imagine a landscape with these things, I mean, it's otherworldly, and it's again, it's where that kind of fantasy realm matches a time period in our Earth's past, right?
Hmm.
Next slide, Mark. And believe it or not, like, the jury is not really out completely on Prototaxites. As recent as 2010, there was a paper published in the American Journal of Botany entitled "The Enigmatic Devonian Fossil Prototaxites is Not a Rolled Up Liverwort Map," and this is just sort of brief communications, but you can see that research on these ancient mushrooms are and fungi are fairly recent, and it's kind of amazing that they've been sort of not neglected, but not they haven't taken the forefront of paleontological science up until quite recently. It's probably owed to the dearth of them in the paleontological record. Things that are perishable, things that are highly fragile, tend to not fossilize. But when we have a Lagerstätten, when we have a place that preserves that kind of entire representation of flora and fauna in the past, you do get things that are quite soft tissue, or not even soft tissue. Things like insects and things can actually fossilize, right? And then the last slide, I think, here is some images of
Morrowind.
what's that?
Morrowind.
Yeah, Morrowind. So I, for a time, played the game Skyrim. I think I actually played it on a spring break at Brown in grad school for like almost like a week and a half straight, and I didn't really come outside, which is sad. But I got really immersed in this world, and you can see why. We're looking at an image from Skyrim, which is a Bethesda Games
Hmm.
video game that came out. How long ago did it come out, Matt? It's pretty old now, like over
Uh,
10
if we're
years.
if we're talking about Morrowind, I believe that came out in the early 2000s. I believe Skyrim initially came out because this game had several launches. Its first original launch, I believe, was 2011.
Okay, so
But
yeah,
I
coming
don't
up on
did
15.
did Skyrim have parts of the Mushroom World in it? Because I thought the Mushroom World was exclusive to Morrowind.
No, it did. It's like when you go on that other island,
Oh,
from
okay, that's right. The DLC. There's a
yeah,
Morrowind DLC. Okay.
yeah. But anyway, we're looking at, and so imagine if, say, giant mushrooms persisted into the present, and how humans would, or other animals would interact. And we're basically looking at a giant mushroom the size of, say, a 200-year-old oak tree, and in the base is a door, kind of like a Hobbit-like world, where people are actually able to transform these giant mushrooms into homes, and use them in various ways. And then the next slide is playing off of a real characteristic that fungi actually have, is they do have bioluminescence. They can glow in the dark. I can't remember the name of the one that
Uh,
glows green.
I
Uh,
just learned about it today. It lives in the Amazon. I don't remember what its name was either.
I think there's one that's called it's called jack-o'-lantern, and I think it's called that because it's a orange mushroom. It can be even found in North America, but it glows green. And these are a bunch of, again, oversized mushrooms, in a sort of a cave environment, and they're all glowing like a bluish green, and they're in and amongst ancient ruins, right? So you can imagine that if, say, Prototaxites, its size was somehow beneficial, perhaps we could have lived in a world with giant mushrooms. But it's interesting, why did it get smaller? What made mushrooms kind of shrink down? But of course, some of the biggest organisms in the world are actually mushroom networks, right? I think that
There's
it's
one
the
that covers an
largest.
entire state. It lives in Oregon.
Yeah, it's the
The
largest. It's the
giant
largest.
honey fungus,
Yes,
mycelium,
Yeah,
that's the
the
one.
hyphae are so widespread, yeah, it just covers acres. It's an
yeah.
amazing thing.
And
Yeah,
then the
a
next thing is
large singular organism.
aspen trees, because they clone themselves, and then they're technically
Right.
all one organism. But
Right.
yeah, it's
The
amazing.
aspen gennet is a rival for the largest organism. Yeah, so that's fantastic. Bioluminescence in fungi, fascinating topic. Uh, it was used in early submarines as the light source, the Foxfire light source inside of
Uh,
the early submarines, the turtle and so forth. So that's fantastic. Okay, is that your last slide, Mark?
that is my last slide. So thinking
Okay,
about
very good. Great.
prototypes.
That was a great introduction. Thank you. Now I'm going to stop share and go to my presentation. Here we go.
Did you have this in the email as well, so I can pull it up?
No, I didn't.
Okay, then
Um,
I'll just keep it on that. I guess for my stream, I'll just keep it on that one slide
okay.
from
Yeah, that'll
other
work for
marks.
your stream. Okay, here we go. Okay, here's my presentation. Okay, so this is prototaxides. Are you seeing that, Mark?
Yes, I am.
Okay, prototaxides and the giant fungus trope in paleo art, thanks to Edith Townsend Cardosi and Anya Fulmer, who contributed research to this section. In fact, we have an article that is supposed to be published in Prehistoric Times. So I'm shouting out to Mike Fredericks. Hey, Mike, when are you going to publish our article?
Shout out,
So
Mike. Where are you,
yeah,
Mike?
so call out to Mike for so Mike, if you're listening, please do let us know when you're going to have that in print. Okay, so now the giant fungus trope in uh, uh, in paleo art has a long history, and here is Edouard Rieu's image from 1867, which was used to illustrate Jules Verne. And you can see here we've got a variety of prehistoric creatures, ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and some sort of pterosaurs in the sky there. And then over on the left, you see giant fungi appearing as part of the prehistoric scene. So this is an early representation of these giant fungi in paleo art. And then in Winsor McKay's classic unfinished feature-length film, Gertie on Tour, which is a descendant of the pioneering animation Gertie, the dancing dinosaur from 1915. Here we see Gertie dancing for the other sauropod dinosaurs. And if you look in the distance there, you will see the giant mushrooms in the background. So Winsor McKay is picking up on this giant fungus trope and using it as the background in Gertie on Tour. Then here is from the classic rendering of Journey to the Center of the Earth, the 1959 show. And here we have a construction of the giant fungi as Jules Verne talks about in his famous novel. And here now it is being represented in American cinema. So it definitely has it is embedded really as a trope in paleo art throughout the decades. Now, I've been growing mushrooms. Here is my oyster mushroom kit. And since they're being grown in the wintertime, relatively cool conditions, and they're getting this kind of nice pigmentation instead of being
Oh,
sort of
wow.
gray or pale gray, they've got this really kind of nice salmony pink color, which I really like. So I was thinking, okay, I'm going to reconstruct prototaxides with this palette. So here's my rendering. Oops, not that one. There we go. Here's my rendering of the prototaxides using that sort of orange red palette. So here we see a stand of prototaxides done in acrylic and showing. I think you can see the lumpiness that manifests itself on the edges of the prototaxides stalks as they rise up out of the earth. Mark, you showed a very impressive slide of the man kneeling next to one of these things, and so you see sort of in the corner of this image, the lower left is a prototaxides that's fallen over,
Hmm.
and if we zoom in on this, we can take a close look. If you look at the section through prototaxides, it actually has rings, ring structure, really not dissimilar to the tree rings that we would see in a vascular plant tree, such as a ginkgo or an oak tree or a pine tree and so forth. So it's really quite interesting that you have this concentric structure. So that really does suggest episodic growth in this fungus as it reaches these towering heights. As Mark Agostini pointed out, fungi do not get this size today, at least not above the ground in above ground habitats. Okay, that's my last slide. So I'm going to stop sharing and now turn it over to Matt Lafreniere.
All
And
right.
just an aside, I love that you grow your own mushrooms, Mark. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, that mushroom growing kit, it was given to me for my birthday.
Oh, that's
And so they're almost ready. I'm going to maybe saute them tonight.
nothing
So
like hen in the wood or chicken in the wood. All right, take it away, Matt.
yeah. So
Good, Matt.
when I did research for mushrooms in games, it was a very difficult because I was trying to figure out what constitutes what we're looking for. But basically, you can break mushrooms down into three distinct categories. One is the giant mushroom trope that we've been talking about for the past 20 minutes. Um, it definitely makes a world look alien, exotic, immersive. It's the easiest way to make a world seem out of place compared to our world. The second is a antagonist, almost like a villain, I guess, usually depicted as a parasite, with The Last of Us, of course, being the prime example. And then the last is mushrooms as healers. Mario eats it, he becomes big, and all kinds of stuff. So I guess for starters, let's see, can I share my screen? So for starters, we've already touched on this. Elder Scrolls. This is a recording of Elder Scrolls Online. It features every world that's in the Elder Scrolls. So this is me walking through Morrowind. I hope the quality is good. You guys see it? But
Yeah,
um,
I can see it.
I found a little bug that has mushrooms actually growing out of it in the world.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's beneficial to the bug or parasitic, but you can definitely see trees interwoven with the giant mushrooms, which is probably about as close as an idea of the Carboniferous as we can get.
Mark,
Uh,
can you make the scene a little brighter? It's pretty dark here.
oh shit. I don't think I can. Let's see. I think I have some daytime footage. Oh yeah, no, I do have some daytime footage. So that's a giant flea that you can ride around on. Let's see if I,
Mhm.
yeah, do more walking through. You can see mushrooms on either sides of me.
Oh, there they are.
They're
You,
very incorporated into the buildings, as we saw.
mm.
Uh,
That would kind of relate to the Mark Agostini's last slide, where the Hobbit hole was built
yeah,
right into the mushroom.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right, now we're getting some good shots. A
There we
very,
go.
very stunning landscape.
Yeah. So the giant mushrooms have kind of been worked into
Yeah.
the landscape here. Nice.
Yeah. So it's a very common thing of just Morrowind itself. I actually I don't know if it was in this gameplay or another gameplay. I ended up going to Skyrim, and that starting here made the Skyrim area very boring because it's just wolves and
Mm.
bears and just normal everyday animals. Where it's kind of funny how the giant insect trope follows this along with the giant mushroom thing.
Hmm. And one thing about the mushrooms, right, is something we note about prototaxites, or we think anyway, is that they're these upright. Well, what they remind me of, honestly, is not the most common thing you would think of. They're phallic looking, right? But they look like stinkhorns. I don't know if anyone's ever seen a stinkhorn
I,
mushroom,
I think
but
I have.
Yes.
but they're actually quite potent. They smell really bad. But they're these they're similar shaped, but we're not actually sure if those definitively grew up upright like that. And there actually could have been quite a bit of prototaxites that was below the ground. Recent science suggests. But one thing about video games is it's always like a traditional cap, like a gill capped mushroom. There's plenty of different variety of mushrooms, but that's the one that's the most enigmatic, probably because it's the most recognizable, right?
Yep. All right. So moving on, this one was actually my favorite. I ended up recording quite a bit of this. So basically, this is a VR title. So
Hmm.
when you see the hand movements and the head, that's all me moving around in my room.
Oh wow.
Right.
So
So
this
this is
is
a virtual reality
yes.
offering.
And so
Yeah.
this is an underwater game, and those those purple things are actually fungus, and they
Hmm.
are conduct electricity. So,
VR is getting pretty good.
yeah.
It is.
So, but the fun thing is that made it even better is that this game has a mushroom biome, and basically it's very deep in the water. So this is when I first discovered it,
Hmm.
and I didn't realize what I was looking at until I was basically right on top of it.
Hmm. So is this just like a scuba diving game, like
Yeah, well,
basically?
it's a survival game, and you've crash landed on an alien planet.
Oh.
That's the burning spaceship.
Yeah.
Oh
So
wow.
so basically you're meant to survive and find a way home. Here's me scanning the cap. So I'm going
Yeah,
to end
very
up
good.
surfacing and I'm going to end up reading what the cuz it does have some information about it. I
Yep.
realized I was running out of air when I was trying to read it. Um but when I get to the surface, I pull it out and read it here. So let me just move the Zoom meeting out of the way. So there. So it says that they are cooperating, cohabitating, and competing. So the mushroom caps are separate from the stalks. The stalks are made of coral.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so they do mention that these caps are similar to earth fungi. So it kind of, in my opinion, doesn't really make sense. I don't think they would be symbiotically working together. I feel like the mushrooms would be disintegrating and eating the coral.
Well, this
But
is really interesting because this idea of symbiosis
yes.
with fungi, of course, is fundamental for the hyper C theory that Diana and I have worked on. But also, there are situations where mangroves will undergo symbiosis in the modern ocean with sponges.
Hmm.
So this kind of cooperation is not implausible, although I'm not aware of any large scale
Yeah.
symbioses in marine settings involving fungi, but it's entirely plausible.
Yeah.
On land, though, fungi are instrumental in regenerating trees that have either been burned completely or partially burned. So, like that network of mycorrhizae underneath really
Right.
help plants
Yeah,
regenerate.
the mycorrhizal
Yeah.
connections are just essential for the
Now,
land biota.
I
I think
don't.
something like 90% of plants require mycorrhizal connections
You know,
to survive.
now I don't know if you guys are noticing this, but there is a line of bioluminescent creatures that wrap around the coral as well.
I
Those are
see
also
that.
separate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Also, they're using my salmon pink palette there
Yeah.
of the
So these are
But
all mushrooms that are attached to the sides of coral. Is that what
yes.
that is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Coral.
They
And
look
then
like artist conch for people that are just listening and can't see. They look like the kind that just grow right on the side of a tree.
Yes,
so yeah, here I
like
go
the
into like
shelf fungi.
So fungi.
here I go
Yes.
into more mining. Let's see if I can get a
Yeah,
sweet bit.
Mark and Mark, we will pronounce fungus sometimes with a hard G or a soft G. Either one
Yeah.
is acceptable.
Yeah, tomato, tomato.
But
I don't
yeah,
know what.
Tomato, tomato, right?
this biome is also very beautiful at night if I end up looking back at it
Hmm.
whenever that happens. But yeah, there's like networks of caves and stuff. There we go. We can see a little bit more. But yeah, no, it's a whole like fauna of alien life that is all completely made up with their own sets of biology made up for it, written by the game devs themselves.
Yes.
Something I like about this game is just well, the immersiveness makes me think about like if we really could do this on an alien planet.
Yeah.
And even
Yes.
if you had a computer that could tell you what things are, I mean, imagine the probability of death, with not knowing
I
anything, but
have died
anything
several times in this game.
but I mean, the luxury of us living now is we know the nature of most things. I mean, you wouldn't walk up to a lion just the same as you wouldn't eat a mushroom that you're not sure of today. I mean,
Yeah.
uh, and thinking about the Silurian Devonian with these prototaxites, I mean, if we could
Yeah.
live on land, imagine the alien nature of that landscape too.
Yeah. Surprisingly, there wasn't any dangerous life forms in that biome.
In
So
this one,
yeah, so
oh,
there are multiple different biomes. Like there's a kelp forest, the mushroom forest, and all kinds of things. I actually ended up getting a jump scare when I got too close to the ship to see if I could salvage stuff from it,
hmm,
and a giant leviathan monster came and grabbed me. So, and that was terrifying to see in VR.
yes,
Right.
Um, so the next series we're actually going to move on to is surprisingly the Pokemon series. The
Pokemon.
Pokemon has several mushroom, um, several mushroom Pokemon. For example, so we got this is Paris. He is our first guy here. His Pokedex entry, it's also the darkest one, is the mushrooms actually took over its body, hence
hmm,
why it has the lifeless eyes and
hmm,
stuff. So it's trying to emulate it's trying to be a reference to that certain Pokemon, or it's trying to reference the ants with the fungus growing out of them
yeah,
that take
Right.
over their mind.
cordyceps.
Right.
So when it evolves into, hold on, this is blocking me. It evolves into Parasect. So this is the mushroom has completely taken over when it evolves, hence why the eyes don't have pupils anymore.
Yes.
Basically, the insect is just a husk now being controlled by the mushroom. Now,
That's very interesting.
all
It kind of is like the Stephen King's story,
yeah,
a gray matter, where a guy drinks a beer that's got some bad fungi in it and they take over his body.
Oh
yep.
wow.
And so all mushroom Pokemon, there's only three families. They all share the grass type, which is funny because it references how people think, or the layman thinks these are all just plants as opposed
Right.
to animals.
Right. Can you make the image a little bigger, Mark?
Yeah, it like I can see it in the
Yeah, we've
corner.
got thumbnails, a lot of thumbnails. Can you give
Y-
us one big one?
Yeah, I'm
That
trying.
is
Well, there's that.
is this from like post Last of Us as a video game, like Pokemon coming
So
out, or is this
so this is definitely pre Last of Us because Last of Us came out, I believe, in the 20s. This Pokemon in and of itself came out with the initial 151 batch, which came out in 90, I want to say 95 ish.
it's
Yeah.
pretty interesting that there was like
So
the thought to do that
so
actually.
so the next mushroom Pokemon that comes along is Amoonguss. Let's see
Um,
if I can get a Bulbapedia.
Fungus Among Us. Nice.
Yes, yes. That's definitely what a lot of people reference it. So this one also shares a very specific niche within the Pokemon game. I don't know if you've noticed, but it looks like Pokeballs. And so
yeah.
what the idea is that all items in the overworld look like Pokeballs. And the idea is that you're supposed to think that it's an item. You walk up, you grab it, and now you're being attacked by this mushroom thing.
Mm.
Uh, Along with its grass typing, it shares the poison typing. Uh, and in the game itself, it's more of a support Pokemon when you battle competitively.
Hmm.
And then the final mushroom Pokemon. Wrong image. Wrong image.
Mhm.
Sorry, the Zoom meeting is like blocking. Okay, there we go. This is Shinotic. So this one is fairy grass type. So this one's going more towards the fairy tale aspect. It comes from the game that takes place in Great Britain. So there are a lot of fairy tales that involve fairies that you were talking about earlier, Mark.
Hmm.
Yes.
And so this kind of plays into that. It's more of the out of the three that I just mentioned, it's more of the healer as
Mhm.
opposed to being disruptive, poisonous, all that stuff. This is more of the healing type.
A
And
fun,
then
uh, a fun fungus fact, just quickly, is fairy rings. They're called fairy rings, but mushrooms sometimes naturally grow in a circle, and those have been interpreted through kind of time as places where fairies will do their kind of mystical healing and things. Yeah,
yep. And then of course we have The Last of Us. I'm gonna try and see if I can get this image in. No. Okay. Well, where am I going?
and
Why?
Last of Us, of course, being a horror, horror series about a pandemic
Yeah.
that turns everyone into
Unfortunately,
made
I owned
zombies.
the game, but I couldn't record it
Oh,
because the part where you get to the fungus bit is quite far into the game. It's not really a game you can sit down and play for like an hour and get everything you need. This one like requires quite a bit of playtime, paying attention, and all
Matt, show
that
us
stuff.
one of the blooming head ones, like where they
Yeah,
have like a full bloom.
like no, 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 not like this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So this is where, in a similar way to the cordyceps actually invade like ants and
Yes.
insects.
yeah,
Most of those cordyceps live down in South America that actually
Right.
zombify those insects. But this is where it's actually started to basically take advantage of maybe the dead cells in the brain to use that as its kind of blooming. Uh, it almost say, well, it looks a lot like chicken of the wood, right? Or hen of the wood mushroom. It's like a
Right.
full bloom.
Must be a Green Bay Packers fan, a cheesehead.
Yeah, cheese. Yeah,
So yeah, out of all the zombie apocalypses, this one is like not too far out of the realm of possibility
Yes.
compared to the other
Very,
thing.
very interesting.
Yep.
That's cool.
So
Okay, Mark, have you got anything else? Or I'm sorry, Matt, have you got
uh,
anything else?
I was just gonna mention two games really quickly because I couldn't
Good.
record them because they're both procedurally generated, and
Yes.
I think I tried searching last night for Minecraft. They
hmm.
have a
Yes.
mushroom biome, but unfortunately I couldn't find it, and I searched for an hour.
Oh,
So
thank you for trying.
basically, this is what it looks like. This
Yes.
little map. Oh, I guess I'm an adult. Okay. Where's that image? There's that
It's
image.
loading.
So there
There
it
it
is.
is. Yes.
So
Oh yeah.
basically, yeah, this is what a mushroom biome would look like in Minecraft. And one
Yes.
of the interesting aspects of it is any animal or mob that spawns in there is going to be mushroomified.
Mushroomified, taken
Yeah.
over by the
Yeah,
mycelia, the
so these
fungus.
are cows, and you can see that they have mushrooms growing on them
That's
and whatnot.
awesome.
And
That's really
so,
The
and
red
so,
the red patternation is an indication that they're not normal cows
yeah,
anymore.
yeah,
I
exactly.
see. The red,
So,
that red color again means you've been fungified.
yeah, and
Fungified.
there's only two mushroom types of it, with the brown cap ones and the red cap ones, and you need one of each, and you make
Yes.
mushroom paste, and you can eat it, and it's the easiest food to make, and it's the easiest to survive off of. So if you spawn in a mushroom biome, that's a good thing.
I love it.
Wow.
I love
That's
mushrooms
Yeah.
personally. I mean,
eh,
I think both Mark and and the other Mark probably both agree. My favorite to find, Mark, is black trumpets. I love finding those. I don't know if you've ever
Oh,
foraged for
fantastic.
them. They're
We've
delicious.
had morels growing in our yard before,
Oh,
and
that's lucky.
they were
That's lucky.
delicious. They're really, really good.
I've
That,
Yes.
never found a morel. I'm so sad. I know
Well,
exactly
you
what they
found
look
them.
like, you know, I know exactly what to do, but I've
They're
never been
totally
like
safe because they're so distinctive. You can't go wrong.
there's only
Uh,
one false one, I think, that's, yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
and
Okay, Matt, are you done? Have you
all right,
finished?
so I got one last one left.
Okay,
This
go
is
ahead.
another VR title, and it's even harder to find it
Mhm.
because everything is procedurally generated. So and it's a
Yes,
space traveling planet game, and each planet randomly generates both the animals and the fauna and plant life. And so
yes,
they do technically have a mushroom biome.
Hmm.
And if you could see in the different corners here, I got different possible procedurally generated mushroom forests, and some of them are even bioluminescent.
Mhm.
wow.
So,
So one thing that we're definitely seeing is fungus is a huge kingdom, right? And
yeah,
what we're
Yes,
seeing represented in paleo art, well, not paleo art, but
yeah.
you know, in various media, multimedia
Hmm.
representations, is kind of only a couple variations. I mean, we have the standard guild, you know, mushroom with a traditional circular cap that's quite broad, like umbrella shaped. We're getting some bioluminescent glowing ones, and then we're getting the cordyceps, you know, that invade the bodies of animals, and
Yeah,
that's really it, you know.
yeah.
yes, yeah, that's right. And it's just for our listeners, we want to keep distinguished between the fauna, which is the animals, and the flora, which are the plants, which would in fact not include the fungi. If you want to talk about the fungi, you would talk about the mycobiota,
Yeah,
Mhm.
the microbiota, because it is, as Mark Agostini mentioned, its own kingdom, this huge kingdom that is, somewhat mysterious. Much of it's underground, and we're still learning a lot about this. And I think that things like prototaxites are kind of monuments to our ignorance about the real extent of this fungal kingdom.
Mm.
yeah. I will say in terms of video games, it doesn't seem very. They don't stray far from what the interpretations go. But honestly, I'll say the underwater one caught me off
Yes,
guard.
Yeah.
yes,
And when I found out that I had it, I realized I had to get that one.
yeah. That is truly, truly awesome. Yes.
Being the
So
most alien, you know, thinking
yeah,
about
Yes,
mushrooms
yes,
underwater. I like that. I like that
is
a lot.
that
right.
even possible? Having
That's a good
mushrooms
question.
underwater?
It is a good question. There, marine fungi are known, and in fact, under certain interpretations, prototoxides has been thought of
Interpreted
as being
underwater, yeah.
an aquatic creature, although I think that's not the standard
That was
interpretation.
part of the algae idea.
Yeah, it's part of the algae idea. Yeah, there was a paper out that interpreted prototoxides as rolled thalli of liverworts. I never found that very convincing. And we saw Taylor's paper refuting that, which Mark Augustini showed us. Okay, Matt, can you stop share for a second?
Yep, my
Okay,
bad. You are screen
okay.
sharing.
I
Stop
have
the
something I
share.
want to
Yeah,
share.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for
yeah,
that.
no problem.
Okay, good. Hold on one second. I've got one thing to show. Uh,
Just put it
okay,
back on
we're
that.
still running here. Just one second. Pulling it up here quickly. Um, I just wanted you to see this image that, hold on. This is a paper published in the journal Reptiles and Amphibians. Let me share it with you. And here, this is not from gaming, but rather the real biota. And
Mm.
it's a mushroom sprouting out of a living frog. Can you guys see that?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What?
Here is
yeah.
a frog with a
What?
mushroom growing right out of its side.
Oh my god.
Now, that's really kind of interesting. And I think it provides a wonderful
Bonnet.
segue.
Bonnet.
Um,
And it's in
uh,
India, Mark, right? India.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
this is in the Western Ghats,
Uh,
near Kerala, India. And so here it is, just you can even see the cap on the mushroom popping right out of the side of the frog. And the frog looks like it's in perfect health.
mm.
Uh, So this will provide a really nice segue for us because we're going to come back in Paleopod to the fungi when we talk about hyper C theory and hypertopias, where we will get this intermingling of fungi not only with plants but also, as we see here, with animals and some of the implications of that for our understanding of the biota, the Paleozoic and post-Paleozoic biota, and how
Hmm.
that really created the terrestrial biosphere in many ways.
Hmm.
So we have much more to talk about, but this has been a fantastic introduction to fungi, how they're represented in digital interactive media, in paleo art, a little history of prototaxites, which has got to be the weirdest fungus or fungus-like creature in the whole fossil record.
Hmm.
So thanks, guys. This has been really great, and we will continue this in a future podcast with Hyper C and discussion of Hyper C. Any other comments from you, Mark or Matt?
Well,
This-
I just have one kind of quick thought experiment. I mean, one thing
Sure.
that us paleontologists are always interested in is like, where can we go to find this type of fossil? And one thing that comes to mind is your inner fish. I'm blanking on his what is his name, Mark? You would know.
Neil Shubin.
Neil Schumann of I think Harvard PhD. He goes to the Antarctic looking for basically the kind of missing link for an animal that emerges out of the water, and Tiktaalik is found. And actually, fun fact, where I go to Brown, Stephen Gatesy actually is the one who discovered the fossils, and he is not credited. Tisk tisk, Neil Schumann. But he is the one who actually found the remains, and he's a great paleontologist who studies dinosaur locomotion, among other things. But
Yes.
where do we go, Mark,
Yep.
to find fossil mushrooms? What are the conditions which would allow for the fossilization of mushrooms as opposed to some other location that fossilizes only fish or something?
That's a great question, Mark. Now,
Yeah.
mushrooms typically do not have mineralized tissues of any sort. So they're essentially soft-bodied, like a soft-bodied animal or an ediacaran. So you would have to go to situations of special preservation. Lagerstätte will sometimes preserve mushrooms. One of the most interesting cases are mushrooms that have been trapped in amber and
Hmm.
have been preserved in beautiful condition. There are amber mushrooms known. Also, for fungi fossils, you can find them going all the way back to the early Devonian. The Rhynie chert, which we'll talk about in our Hypersea episode, shows lots of fungal mycelia infusing the plants that were trapped and preserved in chert
Hmm.
by hydrothermal springs in the lower Devonian, and led to a lot of paleontological thought and controversy as to why those fungi were inside of those plants. The initial thought from the Scottish researchers was that they were degrading or decomposing the plants, but then ideas of more of a symbiotic direction, as we'll talk about later,
Hmm.
began to appear. But to answer your question, fungi are not really that common as fossils because of they're mostly soft tissue, and they're often in environments that aren't going to preserve very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we got to find another one. That's for
We
sure.
got to find another one. Absolutely. Okay. Well, guys, I think we should end it there. So signing off for episode 2. And thank you all again. And we'll see you at episode 3. Bye,
All
everybody.
right.
Bye
Goodbye.
bye. See you in the next episode.